I rise to speak to three amendments of my own, and I've co-signed an amendment 56, in the name of the noble Lord Seeker. I spoke earlier about the government's plans not being strong enough to really get a grip on these out-of-control water companies, and the amendments in this group, including my amendments, 53, 54 and 59, are illustrative of what could be put in place to really force the water companies to clean up their act. There doesn't seem to be any protection whatsoever at the moment against a water company simply going through the special administration process and then hiking bills up on the other side. The moral hazard is obvious. I'm going to take my amendments out of order, and you'll see why. My Amendment 54 creates a special administration process for environmental failures, such as persistent sewage dumping. I don't understand why only financial failure should lead to special administration when a much bigger failure is the sheer amounts of sewage being pumped into our rivers and onto our beaches. Thames Water, for example, will come out of its special administration still in private hands, but with the bulk of the debt being paid off by higher bills. My amendment would change this by giving the special administrator the power to write off the bulk of the debt where it's been used to pay for dividends and where the company has failed to deliver the investment to fix the sewage system. Those powers are not in the current rules, and the government has the chance to change that. And otherwise, we reward the failures and greed of companies like Thames Water and will be blamed for it. I'll take my amendment 53 and my amendments 53 and 59 together only because I actually would have liked to move them to a vote. These are two amendments I care very, very much about. They are issues I think that the general population cares very much about, and it staggered me that there hasn't been more support for this in your Lordship's House. And I do want to thank the noble Lord Seeker for actually supporting me. It's two Greens and the noble Lord who have proposed this. Essentially, my Amendment 53 would prevent water companies from being bailed out by either the public purse or via consumers' water bills. And this is because I'm quite suspicious that the whole bill is a tactic to support the water companies at vast expense to bill payers and eventually to taxpayers. And I simply don't understand why profits are privatised but losses aren't. We, the public, pay for the losses, but we don't get the profits. And then my Amendment 59 requires the government to conduct a full assessment of the costs of bringing water companies into public ownership. So much of the public ownership debate is dismissed based on dubious industry figures about how expensive it would be, which conveniently miss the fact that some of these companies are now distressed assets facing bankruptcy. I'd at least ask the Treasury to do a proper costings exercise which discounts the fact that water company valuations are based on expectations that taxpayers or bill payers will underwrite the future profits of the water companies. Given the total failure of water privatisation, the government needs to seriously plan to bring water back into public ownership. The public are crying out for it, and I think actually it would be good value for money. But the first step towards that is to work out the actual costs, the real costs, rather than regurgitating figures from a biased industry. I actually think it's probably going to be a race against time for Thames Water. Is that going to fail before we actually pass this bill tonight? All the experts agree that Thames Water is going to collapse, so why isn't the government taking it into a special administration immediately? My genuine fear is that this government will find themselves in a political storm over the big rise in water bills to finance a new private company taking over Thames Water, and then the government will have three regrets. Firstly, that they didn't refuse a bailout. Secondly, they didn't listen to the public and didn't change the powers of the special administrator to write off shareholder and creditor debts. And thirdly, that they ruled out public ownership as an option and boxed themselves into a corner. I deeply regret this aspect of the bill, and I wish there was support in your Lordship's House for no bailout and public ownership.